Well, Brian, welcome to the local experience.
Hey, thanks for the invite, Kev.
Hey, you're welcome. So how does a guy like you get into business insurance?
It actually just, I really fell into it when I was 17 years old. I was working for an apartment complex while I was going to junior college, and that apartment complex turned into a condo complex, went from apartment to condo. So they didn't need me anymore as a jack of all trades. I really didn't do much. I swept and vacuumed and painted and stuff like that. And then when I went to class that following Monday, I made a comment to a classmate about, hey, anybody know where a job's at? And I ended up getting a part-time job working 5 to 9 in the evenings for an insurance company. And all I did was pick up the phone and call customers and on new applications or renewal policies that the underwriters wanted questions for. And you know what? I've been stuck in this little realm ever since, and no complaints, none whatsoever.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at business insurance today. What would you say is the biggest challenge that business owners are having when they are looking at either claims or finding business insurance? What's the biggest problem that we're seeing out in the marketplace?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems that I run across is that the business owner doesn't, they're more focused on their business, they're really good at their business. They don't really know the insurance side at all. But sometimes they fool themselves in thinking it's the same as auto and home insurance, and it really isn't. I mean, it can look kind of similar because they use sort of similar terms like a declaration page. But in reality, it is a totally different animal. And really what we look for when we're coming in to talk to a customer is I'll go into their business, I'll do an observation, I look around, I'm looking for things that are safe, I'm looking for things that could be a hazard. Because in reality what we're doing is we're making sure that there is not a claim like a liability claim, a slip fall, let's be simple with it. And we also look to see if there's anything that could be an issue in regards to their employees. Maybe they only have one person signing on that checkbook that's going out instead of having 2 signatures. You know, you look for that aspect. Maybe there's going to be a little employee fraud going on. Because most employers think that the person that's running their checkbook is a very honest individual. And, and sometimes it will go south on them.
And, you know, it's really funny is that having coached so many business owners, it's amazing how many fraud issues that I've come across. I had one client one time who lost, probably about $250,000 because he allowed a very trusted bookkeeper to just completely mix up the books, and it's just a disaster. And unfortunately, he lost the business over it too.
You know, the sad part is usually what you hear is, geez, they were like family and blah, blah, blah. But, and they do it very quietly, little at a time, and then it just keeps going. You know, they did like they can't stop. It's
exactly.
Like, I always wonder how many do one hit and disappear, you know.
Exactly. What would you say, here's an interesting, what would you say is the funniest story or the most tragic story of somebody who completely messed up their business insurance, and now either A, they were not covered for something, or B, they thought they were covered for something and they weren't?
Well, usually when we run across things like that, usually it's an inept insurance agent, and odds are good an insurance agent that's no longer in the business. Maybe they're in it for 1 or 2 years, and then all of a sudden they're out because they weren't very good at it. Other times we'll run across where we'll get a phone call, and I'll ask them how long you've been in business. It'll say 10 years, but I haven't had insurance for the last 7. And then I'll follow up and say, well, why is that? And they'll go, well, we thought we had it. Because once again, it comes right back down to it. They're not really paying attention to that sort of stuff. And it really, if they have someone else doing their books, it's a bookkeeper saying to them, hey, you don't have business insurance. Probably the worst ones you run across is when there's a fire. And then all of a sudden they find out they didn't have building insurance. They had insurance, but they had liability, general liability insurance, and they did not have the building insurance. They thought they did. And that's one of the key things about meeting with your customer afterwards with the policy and kind of going through it with them and letting them know what you have and what you don't have.
Yeah.
But we've run across that. Or major water pipe breaks, and then all of a sudden the tenant finds out it's a triple net lease, which means that they're responsible for everything.
Ouch.
That's a painful one.
So it's interesting in the triple net lease, how many businesses are out there that aren't adequately insured, because with a triple net lease, you're not going to read through every single line in that lease agreement.
On your lease?
Yeah. And so what percentage of businesses are out there that have a triple net that aren't adequately insured?
Well, I'll tell you, what I've found is newer landlords really don't go towards the triple net. It's more the older landlords that have been in the business for a long period of time, because that's what they used to do in the past.
Yeah.
The newer landlords are saying, I got a pretty expensive piece of property here. I'm going to make sure I insure the structure itself and inside, and then the tenant can just do their property. And then plus it gets away from, if you have a major claim, it's so much easier having the landlord go into his place, fix it, get it done, and off and running. Where, like with me, I don't know my building, but, my landlord's guy's been in that business for eons, and it's a triple net. So I understand it. But that's usually one of the first questions I ask if you're a tenant. So, do you know what your lease agreement says? And they'll kind of give you a funny look, like, what? I says, you ever heard of this thing called triple net? No. All right. Get your lease policy out and let's take a look, or call your landlord and ask them. And then 9 times out of 10, I get, I got triple net. Yeah.
Okay. So what percentage, from your experience right now, what percentage of lease agreements are triple net versus the more newer version of what you're just talking about?
Well, a lot of the, for me, the majority of the policies I have where they have an office that they're renting is a triple net. But when I run across a tenant who's gone into a older building, but it's a smaller one, let's say it's a 3-story type, and they've been revamped, like there's one up on the South Hill, and the landlord doesn't do the triple net. Yeah, landlord looks at their value and says it's not worth it. But every now and then, I remember there used to be a billboard sign out in Spokane Valley, and the landlord was put up a billboard and basically just said, I can't stand this company because they did this to me. And all I thought to myself was, what I found out, he's had that billboard up for like 10 years. And this is 10 years ago, is he had a triple net. The tenant did not. And there was a fire that came out of the tenant's area. So, yeah. And so the landlord, of course, blamed the tenant's insurance company for it. It's like, no, there's 2 people involved. There's the landlord, who should oversee their insurance for the tenant too. Hey, what do you have? Tell me what you have and get me a copy of it. And I should be looking at it. And then the other part is the tenant needs to understand what type of lease they have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest error that an insurance agent makes when they're looking, they walk into a business, they look at everything that needs to potentially be insured? What's the biggest mistake that even maybe the rookie insurance agents or even veterans make when they're evaluating for insurance?
Well, one of the hardest things is trying to figure out what the replacement value of a building is. And especially the older ones. And we do have some tools, but I don't know how accurate they really are, because they can't tell you if that siding of that building has 3 layers of siding or just 1 layer of siding. And you don't find these things out until that loss happens.
Yeah.
And so there's always a little buffer that you try to push in there. The business insurance to me is a higher risk of an agent making an error, maybe didn't ask the right question, maybe didn't follow through with the client as they should have. We're human beings. We have traffic just like everybody else in their lives. But I had an older building that when we had those heavy snows a few years back, that actually part of it collapsed. And it was actually an add-on from the original building. And that's how I got this policy. I did insurance at the time, but I got the phone call from the owner of the business and said, hey, I'm having a real hard time with this claim adjuster, blah, 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 this and that. And so I got on the horn and I called the claim adjuster. And there's several you have to work with, because if there happens to be some other people's property in there, let's say it's a auto repair shop and cars got damaged, and then you have the building person that you're working with, and there could be a liability sitting there of some sort. And I was able to get the adjuster kind of on the stick and get going again. And the property adjuster recognized how much work the owner of the building put into it, securing it from future damage, getting all the stuff out it's needed to. He got his crew, basically took his employees and got them going. And then he figured, the landlord or the owner of the building figured, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity for me to revamp my HVAC system. And he did a bunch of other things where there may not have been coverage because the policy wasn't written that well. And when I was talking with the property adjuster, and phone system was another thing we ramped up, security system we ramped up. And then when we brought it to the property adjuster, he noted that, yeah, you guys did a lot of work and it saved us a lot of money. And so they went ahead and covered those type of things. But you just have to watch it. If you're a business owner and you've had your agent for 10 years, and let's say you haven't seen him for a couple of years, maybe you talked over the phone at renewal time or something. Get them in your business. Yeah. Get them back. Tell them what you're up to, how many employees you have, what's your sales revenue doing. Have you brought in new equipment that you didn't even think anything of? Because a lot of times, like on an auto repair area, they'll go online looking for used, but good. It may cost brand new $50,000 for that piece of equipment, but they might be able to get it for $12,000. Yeah. Hey, they purchase it and bring it in. Well, we may not know about that piece of equipment that they brought in. And so those are the things that I think as a owner of a business, you just got to kind of make your insurance guy your best friend. Yep. And you're in good communication with them. It's just like you want to have an attorney that knows your business, and just like your CPA who knows your business. Those are the real three buddies that you should really have in your back pocket.
And a business coach too.
Well, yeah. That's how you make your money.
No, guys, you make your money as a business coach.
You want that cash ready to the ring.
Exactly.
Give a call.
So then when you walk into a business, do you typically have it like a checklist process where you go through and have the different areas and you're looking and you're taking notes and identifying all those? Because I'm thinking about, I bet you some of the struggles that some of these agents have is that they're trying to wing it. And if they are using a checklist, it doesn't have enough areas that cover those kind of things.
So what's happened in Spokane? I can just talk a little bit about Spokane. I know it's gone and also in other areas, but some of the local independent insurance agencies, especially the larger ones that were like downtown and places like that, they sold out a few years ago, to outside owners. Yeah. And while these outside owners come in and are doing efficiency, and they basically are saying is, if you have a premium, insurance premium, let's say $10,000 or less, we're not going to have an agent assigned to you anymore. You're going to be part of our team over the phone. And no, they cannot come out and see your business. Really?
Then don't you think that attitude creates dangerous situations whereby
absolutely.
Yeah, because think about this then, let's say that business owner X doesn't see somebody on site, and then something happens, the insurance company won't cover XYZ, and then that business owner says, I'm getting a lawyer and suing because your contract, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, those type of things. Kind of, a few years ago, I received a phone call and was dealing with a manufacturer here out in the valley, and it was a device in the medical industry that they made, and I was curious, but then again, so I went out to their shop, and I come walking in, and this thing's it kind of reminds you of a man's garage, just like he took his business from the garage and brought it here and just expanded out his garage thing. And so when I'm walking through, as I mentioned earlier, I'm looking for things. I look for security. I look to see if you're OSHA compliant. Do you have the vents and all this? Well, one of the things I noticed, they had an arc welder. And I'm looking, and they have a curtain that goes around the arc welder. Oh, and I'm thinking, okay. And then I'm looking for exhaust fans. No, nothing like that. And then there's a person on this one table, and what this person's doing, the employee, is that they are packaging everything up. And they're standing on a wood crate, with the slacks between the gaps. And that's what they're standing on, because she needed that extra height.
Uh-huh. Oh, my.
Yeah, I'm going.
A violation of OSHA and wish it to be extreme.
I'm looking at this. And then as I'm getting the tour of the place, the guy had some very expensive machinery.
Uh-huh.
And I make notes as I'm going through. And I'll ask the questions. Hey, when did you pick up this? What's the model? Or I'll see it, I'll take a photo or something. And I get values and those type of things. How's it used and everything. But then I'm told, and he also has a side business here too that's incorporated with his business. Oh, let me show you. So we go through the doorway to another area. And he's making high performance parts for race cars.
Oh, my.
And I smiled at her and I said, I'm out of this game. She goes, what? I says, you got a couple things here. And I said, I'll tell you what. And I told her a couple. Then I also sent her an email. I said, here are the things you need to take care of. I said, if you guys have a fire or someone gets burned, I says, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because your safety is a little under. She goes, well, that's the reason why I wanted you to come in. You were referred because of this. And I says, well, I can't insure because I don't do high performance auto parts. And it's just not my area. Plus, I said, plus it's two separate policies and you want to combine. I said, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And then she asked me, she said, well, you do the machine shop part. And I said, no. I can't.
So do you ever have any business owners that try to deliberately cut corners because they figure... give me an example of somebody that you had that had tried to cut corners and it bit them big time.
Well, I was lucky enough that I didn't have anybody like that. But I've gotten phone calls from prospects that are angry with their agent. Anytime you're dealing with a business that their insurance premiums really is based off of revenue, sometimes the owner of the company, or maybe the co-owner / bookkeeper / tax person / spouse, recognizes that, the premium's based off of our revenue, our gross revenue. Well, if we show it lower, we can have a lower premium. Well, what they don't understand or they forget about is that these companies, the insurance companies, have these premium driven by gross revenue sales. They have the right to come in and audit your book of business 3 years back. And if they find through your tax records that you falsified your revenue, they will then send you a bill. And the one I had was dealing with a roofing company, and they went back and the insurance company sent a bill for $15,000. They weren't too happy about it. And I says, well, here's the thing. You just got to show them your tax records and just pay, because they do have the right to come back. And what happens is that then they're going to cancel you, and then you have to go out in the open market again, showing you were canceled, and the reason behind it, and then it becomes more expensive for you. And any bars, taverns, anything really revenue premium. Some of them. I mean, I even had one guy say to me, "Well, my premiums went up, and I know what it's generated by, and Brian, I'd really like you to, get me a quote because, I think I'm paying too much on insurance, and I can show that that I've done less in my alcohol revenue than on my food." I'm just sitting there thinking, dude, you know what you're saying to me? First of all, I don't care for your ethics.
Yeah, exactly.
And second is well, why would I want to get into this? I want to insure you properly and get the appropriate premium for the risk. And you want to falsify your financial records all over a couple $1,000? Thanks, but no thanks.
It's amazing. I haven't run into too many of them. There are some business owners who really struggle with ethics and integrity. I mean, I can count on maybe, I would say maybe two hands in the 20 years plus that I've been doing coaching where I had to fire a client over ethics. And you know what? Every single one of those was over IRS taxes.
Yeah.
They basically did not come clean. When I found out that they had IRS debt that they had not disclosed to me, and the reason they're embarrassed, and I always tell people, this is not the place to be embarrassed. This is the place for you to get completely naked with me, and I don't mean physically, but I mean business wise, you need to get naked and just said, hey, here it is. This is what it is, and I think the business owners that struggle with that are going to have a real challenge when it comes to their business operations overall, because the two people they really have to get naked with is their insurance person and their business coach. And if you won't get naked with those people, you really should question why you're in business.
I agree with you 100% on that, because in reality, I'm not sitting there making a judgment on them in any way. I just need to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you understand what's going on, then you can figure out how to insure them or how to coach them. But on the other side of the coin is, if you're like me, I look at it and ask myself, okay, so if this person is cheating, then there's a claim, and then they go to the company that I insure them with, then I have a reputation, and then all of a sudden I have a claim adjuster who is saying, hey, what do we have here, Brian? And then now my reputation is sitting there. And odds are good, if they're a cheating type person, they will pad the loss so they can get maybe more or something out of the claim. And so it's just not a good situation. And when in my mind, I always say to people, look, if you're straight up with everybody and you do the right thing, it may feel a little painful or uncomfortable, but if you might never know that behind the scenes, you're known as a cheater, and no one really wants to do business with you.
Yeah.
So that's why I can't figure out why you're not getting referrals.
Yeah.
Is, well, you kind of have not the best reputation. You might be getting new stuff.
Yeah.
But you're not getting the gravy stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, what would you say is the worst struggle you've ever had in business insurance with an insurance company? Somebody who was absolutely unwilling to pay a claim for one of the dopiest or dumbest reasons, and you had to go to war with them.
Well, you really have to go to, I use the word war, but I kind of laid down the law. Usually what happens is one of the things I find about insurance and with claims, and especially if they've been in the industry for 20 years, and they'll say to me, the adjuster will say, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, Brian. And that's my first red flag to go. And you haven't changed a bit from 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I was assisting a non-client. It was her mom called me, who was a client of mine, and said, can you help my daughter? A commercial truck wheel broke off, slammed into her car with her two kids in child seats in the back seat and her in the front. The commercial wheel hit the vehicle so hard that they couldn't open the back doors to get the kids out. And she ended up getting a pretty good a whiplash injury out of it herself. Well, the problem is 300 miles ago, which would have been a week earlier, that vehicle was in a repair shop having its brakes done. 300 miles down the road, all of a sudden, a wheel is busting off. Slams into him. So the truck is insured with one insurance company, and then you have the repair shop is insured with another.
That's quite the conundrum.
And then you have this single gal with 2 kids sitting in the middle. And the truck insurance company is saying to me, it's not our responsibility, it goes to the shop. Shop says it's the truck's responsibility. I go back to the truck responsibility and I said, you're the ones that are responsible. And she goes, oh, absolutely, Brian. You don't understand how this works. I says, absolutely, I do. How it works is this. I go, the truck is the one that had the wheel that broke off and hit the customer. The truck is responsible to make the customer right. You then, behind the scenes, you go back to the mechanic repair shop and say, hey, we need to talk. And then you guys work it out. And then she says to me, I've been doing this for over 25 years, Brian. That's not the way how it works. And I kind of got on my soapbox and I said, well, let me explain something to you. In these last 25 years, someone has shown you that customer service now is taking over the insurance industry. It means that customers first. You take care of them. They drive away in their car and happy. They get there and pay for the medical bills. And then you just go right to that other company and you guys hash it out. That's how it works. You don't tell this other person, not our problem. You go to them, to the other mechanic. And then guess what? And she says, well, we'll see about this. Hangs up. And I go, watch. And sure enough, 2 days later, my customer's daughter calls me and says, what did you do? And I said, I just made a phone call and talked. She says, well, they're talking to me, the truck one, saying, send me your bills. What do you have? Go get your car looked at.
Yep, and it's interesting.
It was a wake-up call.
Well, that's an interesting point on customer service, because I always remember growing up, there was always the Adjusters Academy. The only thing you learn in the Adjusters Academy is no.
Yeah.
And you remember that commercial? Yeah. And now it's so interesting because I think that insurance companies, at least good ones, are waking up to the fact that, hey, this is a competitive marketplace out there. We have what we could have gotten away with 30 years ago, can't get away with it now because of social media. How many people it's like blank insurance company, blank, and then that thing goes viral everywhere.
Yes.
And so if you think about this, let's take this to the local business owner. How many local business owners could get away with mediocre to bad service 30 years ago, and maybe the BBB might get wind of it, and now everybody and their brother and their sister knows about it because it's wide open on there.
It's on it. Yeah, it's out there, and there's just no way you can turn it. And you know, you'll and you've even heard people say to me, "Well, how do I get that negative review off of there?"
And you know what? I'll tell you. I had a great story on this. I had a client hadn't paid attention to any of his reviews, and when I first started working with him, he was complaining about a lot of problems where he had a lot of revenue challenges. It was a restaurant. And so I immediately went on to several of these review sites, and he had terrible reviews. Part of these reviews were food quality. Part of it was service. So the first thing I had to do is like, hey, we've got to tighten up these areas in both your production, the food production, and the service. But then the second thing is you have to actually answer those reviews. Yeah. And so you have to sit on there and either said, hey, thank you so much for the feedback. We're working on this, and that. Or if it was not legitimate, he had to do is say, hey, thank you so-and-so for that. I've done some research and I found that this is what happened. Hopefully this thing's like, you'll understand what took place. Because I can tell you right now, the worst thing you can do in a negative review is to ignore it. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't want to get in conflict with somebody. Well, you at least have to answer it.
Right.
And this is where, when you answer it, people see that you've responded back. That actually gives you pluses. And I think insurance companies probably have realized this over the years. And I hope, I know your independent agency is really good about that. But I'm wondering how many other independent agencies are really conscious about that, taking care of the customer and not going back to the good old days of deny the claim, deny the claim, deny the claim. Of course, it's not the independent agency's thing to do that. That's not them, but they need to be the advocate far more than maybe they realized.
It's hard for insurance companies to really just flat out, deny a claim that they should be paying on. I mean, it's what they'll have then is a rogue adjuster of some sort, and that's a real rarity. The thing I run across is just kind of an ego that will kick in. Like I said, they hit the drum and they go, I've been doing this for 20 years or 25 years. And I never want to say to them, oh, really? Well, I've actually been doing insurance for, 48. They don't realize I got in at 17 and all the avenues I've gone in and out during that time. But the interesting part really is it's 9 times out of 10, it's ego.
Yeah.
It's a pride or stubbornness or something. Instead of just taking a fresh look at it, when I run across some things, I will help. And you've heard in our group where I say, hey, if anybody gets hit by a commercial truck or vehicle, have them give me a call and I'll give them the guide of how to handle this claim, because personal lines insurance and commercial lines insurance are really two different service-oriented industries. Commercial is coming along pretty good. They're really good on the quick service things, add a car or add an endorsement and those type of things that are there. But on the claim side, they still seem to be really pretty, I'll call slow at today's standards. Mm-hmm. It can really be frustrating, especially if you're here in the Pacific Northwest and you're dealing with somebody out of Philadelphia. Great. You got a wonderful timeline. And what do? They work from 7 in the morning till 4.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's like, go, geez.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you run across that type of junk.
Oh, I'm sure you do. And I guess I want you to put yourself into the shoes of a business owner. Knowing what you know, what are the biggest things that a business owner can do to really reduce claims? Or at least, what is it that they can do to mitigate their own insurance issues? I mean, obviously there's OSHA and WSHA regulations, but what are 1 or 2 tips that that a business owner should be doing in that respect?
I think one of the best things is when I come driving up to a business type, I always look for pride of ownership. It's kind of the key. When you see pride of ownership going in, whether it's around the building, its landscaping's in great shape. The building doesn't need anything done to it, painting or any of those things. It's not a broken board up window. You usually get a good attitude of what the person's going to be like. And then the thing I would really bring out to a owner of a business is have that relationship with that insurance person. Exactly. And if you're one of those that's on that freaking call customer service tree where you call in and somebody helps you and you call in next time somebody else is helping you because your premium's below $10,000 a year, you're just not worthy of having an agent assigned to you, then bail out. Yeah. No matter what your relationship is, bail out, find an independent like me. Yeah. Who will come and abuse you. And I can tell you right now, I have had... In a good way. Well, that's one thing as a business coach. I'll ask them about it. Well, tell me about your relationship with your insurance company. And they said, oh, it's a 1-800 number. I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. So they're afraid of, price and all sorts of things. Well, I got it from XYZ company and they gave me a great quote. And I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Most of these independent insurance agencies actually have pretty much the same thing, and they're actually going to give you personalized insurance. Yeah, they will. So here's another question, kind of as we're getting starting to wrap this up. Especially if they're natural redhead. Exactly. Yeah. So now insurance and COVID.
What is it right now that you're when you're talking to business owners and dealing with COVID issues, insurance, what are you recommending for them?
Well, right now there really is not a product that is out there to add onto your commercial policy to protect you for a virus like this. There's Lyme disease and things like that, but the industry is, I know behind the scenes, are looking and trying to rapidly get something out there, because who anticipated this type of thing? It also, the industry can argue, was a political motivation. I mean, it's not a black and white, and that makes it really difficult in the industry, because the industry is based off a written contract, the word.
Yeah.
And so we just tell them right now there really hasn't been that many changes, but we do foresee things happening. And as soon as that endorsement comes through, we will be contacting you immediately and adding it onto your policy.
Do you think that there's going to be COVID legal actions taken against individual business owners that you would have to deal with insurance-wise?
Yeah, right now it seems more like the business owners are going more after the insurance industry, saying, well, why isn't there, this is business interruption? Well, it's a written contract, and it specifies specifically what is covered and not covered on business interruption. And so eventually there'll be some things coming through. The other concern is that, yeah, I could see an employee coming back and saying, I ended up getting COVID-19, and now I have some health issues that may be long-term. Yeah, we can see that. It's something that no one saw. The contracts weren't written that way, but I can tell you right now, the insurance industry is digging hard, trying to figure out how do we bring a product out that, first of all, won't bankrupt the industry, and make it where it's so expensive that these businesses can't even operate. It's kind of like, it's kind of like the black mold in the 1990s coming out of Galveston, Texas. That was a huge item in my industry at that time.
Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this off here. So tell me a little bit, where do you see Spokane business going in the next 5 years? Give me kind of the crystal ball of where we're going to be 5 years from now as far as the business economy in the Spokane area.
Well, Spokane has never really been known as a big, line going straight up really quick. One thing I do like about Spokane, it's what I call like grinds. It just grinds and keeps growing 2%, 3%, 5%, these niches. And we'll see some transition differences happening, but this is a very healthy area. And it will continue to attract people from the outside that want to bring in international business, like Amazon. I mean, look at Amazon already hit once. Now they're hitting twice out in Spokane Valley.
Yep.
I know that one of the insurance companies that I'm a carrier at that Pemco Mutual Insurance Company coming out of Seattle, hey, they went from starting off with 5 people and now have over 300 out in the valley. Working out of their office, and they're making it as their secondary hub as they slowly transition out of the city limits of Seattle. So,
and to me, I see the Spokane almost like in the sweet spot of size. If we were like Laramie, Wyoming, there just isn't enough infrastructure.
Right.
If you're sitting in Seattle, Washington, you're seeing a lot of societal challenges that a lot of these companies don't want to deal with anymore. And so I see Spokane sort of in that almost perfect spot that it's got the infrastructure. It's got about 96% of what you need to operate, a 4,000 employee force. And yet it's that perfect in-between spot.
Well,
so,
you got educated folks, good work ethic that are coming through, because a lot of the small towns coming from them, and also here, I always say, we finally just put in those on-ramp lights.
Yeah.
They haven't got them all working yet, but I kind of laugh going, geez, everywhere else I go, they have them. They drive you nuts when you're trying to get on the freeway. Do we even have a carpool lane yet? I don't think we even have a carpool lane.
No, I don't think so. And who knows if that's where we're going to need one of that.
Because I always go to left lane, think it is, and accelerate. So,
yeah, exactly. There you go. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming to Local Experience.
Yeah, thanks.
And it's great having you. And how can people find you?
Hey, you know what? I'll tell you what. One of the best ways is really is pick up the phone at 509-532-0388. And because we're in Spokane. We're on the 1200 block of East Sprague Avenue. A lot of people know that area.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really easy to come down and visit us if you want to come in. Got plenty of parking for you. But majority of my business is over the phone. When I get up out of my office, I'm actually going out to see a prospect or a client, whether it's going out to their business and some of them to their homes because they're not that mobile anymore. Right. So I'll go up there and with my mask on now and then go that direction. But yeah, 509-532-0388. The insurance guys will be the person answering the phone.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brian. Absolutely. It was great talking to you today.
You betcha. That was fun. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.